You count on Native America Calling for timely and entertaining conversations every day. Now, Native America Calling is counting on you. We are ending the year with a fundraising drive to keep the conversations going. And when you make a donation of any amount between now and the end of the drive, December 31st, you'll be entered to win 2 Alaska Airlines tickets as our thank you for supporting Native America Calling. Go to nativeamericacalling.com and click on the button that says Donate Today. Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. This year, writers Angeline Bully, Ramona Emerson, Vanessa Lilly, and others gave readers much-anticipated sequels. Journalists Mary Annette Pember, Julian Brave Noisecat, and Tanya Talaga shared their poignant family connections to boarding school history. And poets Billy Ray Belcourt, Amber McCrary, and Elise Passion wrote love letters to Native identity. They're among the talented authors that delivered a notable year in Native books. We'll talk about it after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. Long before World War II, the U.S. forced Native Americans onto reservations. After the Pearl Harbor bombing in 1941, the U.S. forced Japanese Americans into camps. In Arizona, the federal government once again looked to Indian reservations. As part of a series on World War II internment camps, KJZZ's Gabriel Pietrazio has more.
None of the 8 other internment camps in the U.S. were on tribal lands, so why here in Arizona? UCLA anthropology professor Koji Lau Ozawa has an answer.
John Collier, who was the Commissioner of Indian Affairs at the time, advocated for all of the camps to be put on reservation lands. He thought that the Office of Indian Affairs was well suited to this task of managing these confined racialized populations.
The Indian New Deal, as FDR called it, was part of the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934 and tried making amends for past treatment by investing in tribal infrastructure. That was until the war effort began.
Funds were starting to dry up. This presented an opportunity.
An opportunity to turn Japanese Americans into a source of prison labor to develop tribal resources, as shown by a 1943 propaganda film narrated by Dwight Eisenhower's brother, Milton, about an internment camp in western Arizona.
At Parker, they undertook the irrigation of fertile desert lands.
Brian Nia says the U.S. embraced a stereotype.
Japanese Americans, with their supposed expertise in farming and agriculture, could help build up the land that would allow for the Native Americans to benefit from, without the consent of the tribes themselves, of course.
Nia is editor of Densho Encyclopedia, which chronicles the camp's history. Without much legal representation or political clout at that time, the Gila River Indian community and Colorado River Indian tribes both tried fighting camp construction but failed.
Through the Office of Indian Affairs, I think there was just a thought that we could bulldoze our way through.
Once again, today's federal government is butting up against tribal land. The Trump administration's alligator Alcatraz is being built near the Big Cypress National Preserve and Everglades National Park.
We're right in the middle of it. We have tribe members that live within 500 feet of the detention center. You know, it's not like this distant thing that it is for a lot of Floridians.
Talbert Cypress is chairman of the 600-member Miccosukee tribe, which brought alligator Alcatraz to a halt.
We don't go to war anymore with tomahawk or anything like that. You know, we go to courtrooms now and we go to meetings with politicians.
For National Native News, I'm Gabriel Pietrazio.
Children across the U.S. are being raised by relatives or family friends. The Mountain West News Bureau's Daniel Spalding has more on a new report showing the challenges these kinship families face.
According to the U.S. Government of Accountability Office, or GAO, these households are more likely to experience poverty and mental health issues. Kinship families are common in Mountain West states with high indigenous populations like New Mexico and Arizona. Kathy Laren at GAO says kin caregiving is an important part of tribal culture, but because many indigenous caregivers are outside the formal foster care system, they often receive less financial support.
One of the biggest challenges that we heard across the board for grandparents and other relatives that are raising, their relative children is just the financial burden of it.
Laren says states could adopt standards and programs designed to better support kinship families. I'm Daniel Spalding.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation, with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Skugtash. For more than 40 years, Ramona Farms has revived ancient traditional foods, tepary beans, pinoli, polentas, and more, all from store.ramonafarms.com. Ramona Farms supports this show. Domye. Support by Drummond Woodsum, a full-service law firm whose nationally recognized tribal nations practice provides services to tribal nations and their enterprises and to companies that do business with tribes across the country. More at dwmlaw.com.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Right now, avid readers have dozens of new novels, poetry collections, memoirs, and children's pictures books by indigenous writers to choose from. Our bookshelves are full here at Native America Calling, and as much as we try to keep up, there were many great books from 2025 that we just haven't gotten to yet. This hour, we'll discuss some of our favorite books from the year with a lineup of dedicated Native book enthusiasts. You as a listener, as always, can join our conversation as well. What Native books did you enjoy reading this year? Give us a call. Let us know. 1-800-996-2848. That is the number to our Albuquerque studio. It's also 1-800-99-NATIVE. We're going to talk a lot about books today. So if you miss a title or an author's name mentioned during the show, we have them listed on our website, nativeamericacalling.com. Just search for today's show. Let's now meet today's guests. Joining us from Minneapolis, Minnesota is Allison Waka. She is an American Indian Library Association member at large, and she is Menominee and Navajo. Allison, good morning and welcome to Native America Calling.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Joining us from Fort Worth, Texas is Stacy Wells. She's an author and librarian, and she's from the Choctaw Nation. Stacy, welcome to Native America Calling.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today.
And joining us from Phoenix, Arizona, we have Amber McCrary. She is a writer and poet, and she is Dene. Amber, good morning. Welcome back to Native America Calling.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's go ahead and get this conversation started. We're going to talk books today. Great books by Native writers from 2025. And Allison, let's begin with you. What are your top books of the year?
Oh, I have a long list. So I guess we could start with, so I live here in Minnesota, so a lot of my books are centered here. Like Where Wolves Don't Die is by Dr. Anton Troyer, who is a language advocate and professor here. And it starts in Minneapolis, and then it goes on into Canada. It's a YA novel. The other YA one that I really liked was Sisters in the Wind, which is a bestseller already. So if you've liked her other books, Angeline, I can never say her name right, but
Angeline Bully.
Thank you so much, because I always think that I'm going to say it the opposite way that I'm going to say it wrong. And so thank you for that. But if you liked her other books, and the reason I really like her, I've heard her speak a couple times here in Minneapolis, and she just is so eloquent, so beautiful. And one time she even said she was talking about how, she sits and writes like her cousin is sitting on her shoulder, and just like I just feel it. She just kind of is an author that really encompasses us as a community, and just really love her writing. And then I do have a few favorite children's books, like Bud Finds Her Gift, which is by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She did wonderful books, and now this is her children's book. And just talks about, I think this is kind of relates to like my son's generation, the younger kiddos right now that are learning to listen to nature, and we're giving them that opportunity now. And then I really liked a couple fire books, which was The Culture of Science and Future of Fire it's a Shakopee Mdewakanton here. She works here in the fire, and that's just a really, really, really cool book. So that's a little bit older if you're looking maybe top elementary. And then A Story of Fire. It's by an Ojibwe author that's here in the Great Lakes. I forget where, I think she might be Bad River. But it really gives some science behind how we really have fire as a relative, and just think that's a really important conversation to have. I liked Fishing by Torchlight, which was written by a really young, I think she was 10 years old. The author is 10 years old, and it's just talking about spearfishing. And just, that something that I used to do with my dad, and maybe that's why I really, really like it. But there's also Moon Song, which is a beautiful, beautiful new title that just came out recently. So I think that one, and then there was another one that I really liked, that Moon Song, and then the Ojibwe horse. There's an Ojibwe horse one. I can't think.
How Across the Ice? How we saved the Ojibwe
Thank
horse.
You so much.
Yeah,
yes,
you bet.
It's really, really beautiful. So that talks about the Ojibwe horse, and I think that's nice that it relates to someone like horses have always been important to us, right? And so it talks about that connection. And I really like I Am on Indigenous Land. It's another Minnesota author, and beautiful artwork in that one as well. And just kind of showcases different reservations throughout it. It's just really cute. So those, and then one of my favorites is the Minnesota Native Lives series that they did 3 books previously that actually won our American Indian, what is it, Stacey? Youth Literature Awards. I hope I'm saying the acronym right. Stacey and I served together, but so then they won for the past 3 books, but now they came out with 4 additional ones, which highlights heroes in Minnesota, really, and they're written by Diane Wilson, who is a wonderful author, and beautiful artwork, but it just has different Minnesota advocates or activists that have, so George Morrison, Sharon Day, and highlight some other elders, which are really, so those books I like because they're not children's, but they're not YA yet. They're kind of in that middle ground, which I feel like we're kind of missing a lot of times. So, but yeah, those are kind of my top ones for the, and then my favorite is this year was We Survived the Night. And so reading that, I feel like it really highlights how I hope that authors we're going to be going to in the future, where it's more our old tales alongside our own current stories. It kind of is incorporating, he goes back and forth, right? And so it's like things that he went through with his father, and then his parents meeting, and then he goes back to the Coyote Tales, and it's just really, really beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I even highlighted parts of it, right? So you know it's a good book when you're like highlighting, and then he also just gives, so when the We Survived the Night comes out of when instead of saying good morning, when you say good morning, when they say that, it really means, oh, we survived the night, right? So that just kind of showcases like how our people were, really. We were happy that we got through the night, and we were a people of survival. We were people that adapted and just really, so it's one of my favorites. So definitely check that one out if you can.
One of my favorites, too. In fact, we had Julian Brave Noise Cat on the show. He was one of our Native in the Spotlights just earlier this fall. And the memoir, and he just puts it all out there. He doesn't hold back, just the good, the bad, and the ugly of his, his whole family. And that's what it takes, though, to write a really good memoir. You just got to be pretty fearless and just put it out there, expose it.
And for us all to heal along with him, right?
Right.
So it was really healing for me to, know that we're not alone in all of this, and that we had these stories that need to be. I think a lot of times we're thinking of, oh, these stories are not exactly how they were 500 years ago or whatever, right?
Yes.
But our stories weren't like that. We had storytellers. We were oral storytellers, and we could have wrote things down, right? But we didn't, right? We wanted us to have that social connection. We wanted us to adapt the story to the audience. We wanted it to, and so I'm going off on a tangent here, but I think this is really something that is showcasing like how, we don't need that exact, very specific tale of our ancestors, that story of our ancestors. Sure, we need parts of it, but we need the parts of it that are connect to us now, right? And then we'll adapt it. Then we'll go back, and so I think this book just really touched me in that way, where sometimes I know I get caught up in like, oh, it's not exactly how, what was the real story, that my grandma heard, right?
Yeah.
And we don't need to do that. We don't need, our ancestors are going to be happy that we're telling our stories in any little piece of way that we know and we remember, and that's what's important. Mm-hmm. So that's how I felt about We Survived the Night. So I really appreciated him writing that.
Don't you just feel a tremendous sense of gratitude, Allison, to all of our Native artists, but especially these authors who take that upon themselves, to carry on those stories, to share that knowledge, whether it's a novel, whether it's a memoir, whether it's nonfiction, just to take because especially in this day and age when people are just, it's just hard to do that, to sit down and write, and they do it for us.
Right. And I think we need to remember too that we've always been storytellers. Right? It's in our DNA. And so for the Native authors to really flourish, like, Stacy and all these titles that we're talking about today. And I think too, it's really beautiful. Like when I was younger, I didn't have any books at all. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say my age, but it wasn't too long ago, I hope.
Okay. We have to take a break here, but we'll come back. We're going to continue this conversation. Great show today. Give us a call, 1-800-99-NATIVE. In addition to feasts, presents, and time with family, the holiday season brings a big dose of stress for a lot of people. As we approach year-end deadlines, holiday event planning, financial pressure, and dozens of other factors, we'll look at some of the warning signs for people's mental health and what to do about them. That's on the next Native America Calling.
Repatriation is the return of ancestors and stolen culture. The Association on American Indian Affairs is hosting the 11th annual Repatriation Conference, Feeding the Fire, Advancing the Movement, in February 2026. This fully virtual conference will offer small group interactive workshops, strategies, networking, and more to advance domestic and international repatriation. More at Indian-Affairs.org. The association supports this show.
You are listening to Native America Calling. We're looking back at the year in Native books, and you can join our conversation. What 2025 Native books have you enjoyed reading this year? Give us a call. We're at 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Let's now talk with Stacy Wells. She is an author and a librarian, and she's from the Choctaw Nation. And Stacy, we just heard Allison talk about a lot of different books. She has a really comprehensive best of 2025 Native author books. And she mentioned how the young adult genre, how there's not a lot of activity there, maybe not as much as there could be. Angeline Bully, of course, I think is kind of the premier name right now in that space. But what are your thoughts on the whole young adult novel genre, and who are your favorite Native young adult book authors who published this year?
Oh, well, hello. Yes. I am going to agree with Allison wholeheartedly. There's not enough YA books written by Native authors. I think in the coming years, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm hoping we'll see an explosion in that area. And we can say the same for middle grade too. There's just not enough. But my favorite YA authors, number one, I will always say Byron Graves. I love Resball so much. Angeline Bully, loved her from the beginning. And some of the newer ones on the scene right now, Cheryl Isaacs, who wrote The Others, The Unfinished, and then K.A. Cobell with Looking for Smoke. Those are some, but none of those were 2025. So, but those are the ones that stick out to me as like some of my ultimate favorite YA Native written novels.
Well, let's talk about The Others by Cheryl Isaacs. This is a young adult horror novel. What is it about a horror novel that made your list this year?
So, well, one of it, because I don't read a lot of horror, I actually don't like the genre. I know, it's so weird. I love it. I think it's because I don't know how to approach it. And I love the settings that she creates in her books that are atmospheric, they're engaging, and they just kind of drew me in. Her words drew me in. The story of the characters, the relationship with her family, her community, those things, they're one that drew me in. So I think horror, that was part of the story, but that wasn't, like, to me, that was the genre, but the story was the rest of the heart of the story. Mm-hmm.
Now, as a librarian, you must interact with a lot of young readers. What do children tell you when they come to you and they say, or even parents interested in good books, good Native books for their children, fiction, even maybe nonfiction? What are a lot of them looking for in terms of themes and plots and characters?
So I don't work on a reservation. I don't work in the mostly Native community, I would say. So I don't have those experiences of people coming up and say, hey, I want good Native books. But let me tell you, I do buy them for my community, and I proudly display them as much as I can. I think what kids are looking for, they're looking for funny books, something that engages them. I know we're not talking about non-Native books, but anything like Dog Man or Captain Darby Wimpy Kid, they love those books. They devour those books. So for me, when you're looking for something commercial, like that commercial hook that really draws that reader in. But I think our Native books do that as well. That's my take. The book that, like Resball, for example, it's set on the reservation, but it's got that basketball element. And to me, and that's a YA book, but it brings in all the action. It brings in that literary component of family, finding his voice without his brother, the community, death, trying to live with fame, and what happens when the whole community is behind you, hoping y'all win that state basketball game. But to me, the young kids, they're curious and they want to know. They want to read all of the Alan Gratz books. So that's why I really am a big fan of Faye and the Dangerous Journey by Kim Sigafris. She's Ojibwe. And it's actually, I learned something new. It's part of the Girls Survived series, and girls seeing themselves in these active roles of like taking charge of a situation they had no control over. And this one I did not know about, but it's about the sorry. It's about the Sandy Lake Ojibwe removal. I've never heard of this, and but there's so much history. There's 575 federally recognized tribes. I don't know everything, and this book just brought that to the forefront about Faye and her family and this long, difficult journey that they had, and coming to find out it was all so they could try to steal the land from where they had come from in Wisconsin when they went to Minnesota, and just Faye and her journey and her not giving up.
In that book, Faye and the Dangerous Journey, it takes place in 1850. So it's very much based on a historical event and the characters and such. And tell me more about those characters and what made them all work together.
Because Faye's father decided when they were coming from Wisconsin to Minnesota to collect their annuity that he was going to bring their whole family because that's what they were told to do. So it was the mother and her two sisters. She had an older sister named Charlotte and a younger sister named Sarah. But this was over. I don't grow up in Minnesota, but I always picture it being very cold. October, ice, snow, you're freezing, and surviving that journey together. And then also losing your mom on that journey as well. And then going back in the dead of winter back to your home in Wisconsin. And it's just a great experience for reading for kids. They want to know that type of information. And I'm in a state that does try to book ban a lot, and I'm in Texas. And I think it's important that we share our history, because if we don't share our history, we don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. And we have to understand why we do certain things. And that is a great example of a history some people in Texas may not know.
Legendary Fry Bread Drive-In. It's a collection of short stories. It was edited by Cynthia Leitich Smith, and we actually had Cynthia on our food show, The Menu, and she talked about this book. And I know it's one of your favorites as well. What does this collection of short stories celebrate?
I think it celebrates the many different ways of being Native, whether you live on the reservation, you don't come from the reservation, what your intersectionality of being Native is, and it's not always just being white and Native, but what other intersectionality can it be? It talks about freedmen, and if you're not familiar with that, but that's like an Oklahoma thing, and the power of being accepted for who you are, and then people in your community understanding that you need something, whatever it is, because every story is different. Every character needs something different. But being able to help guide you in the right direction to finding what you want or what you need.
Right. Yeah. So many really good books came out this year. Another one that's gotten a lot of traction, The Summer of the Bone Horses by Virginia Driving Hawks-Neevy. She also came on the show and talked about this children's book, very much based on her own family history.
Absolutely. And the importance of Virginia Driving Hawks-Neevy is that she wrote the very first book. It was called Jimmy Yellow Hawk in 1972. That was by a Native person for Native people, set in a contemporary time. She did it in a time where Native books weren't being published in the 70s. And it's taken a long time. And someday I can tell you the whole history of how we're getting to where we are today. But she is a very important piece of that, getting that book published. And we know about it. And then coming out with The Summer of the Bone Horses. Because I think sometimes as kids or even me, when something was published in 1972, I wasn't born, so that seems like so long ago, but in reality, that wasn't that long ago, like in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. And she's still writing books today. And that's the importance of this story. It's a contemporary story, and it has the emotional resonance that every kid can relate. So we call it that universality. It's universal. So kids who are with their grandparents for the first time and they're not with their parents, and they're sad because they miss their parents. That's a universal kid experience, right? But in this, this specific experience is that this Eddie, the Lakota boy, he goes to Rosebud Reservation and he learns all these new experiences, and he's learning more about his grandparents and his culture. And it's just a beautiful story about all of that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one as well. Now, Stacy, what also is really exciting is you have a book that's going to be published next month. It's titled Stronger Than. Tell me more about it.
Yes, this is actually a beautiful book that's like 4.5 years in the making. And I co-authored it with Nikki Grimes, who is a legendary Black author and poet. And it is illustrated by E.B. Lewis, who is Lenape. He's Black Indigenous. And together we created this book, Stronger Than, which is about a Black Choctaw boy who has nightmares. And he learns to overcome his nightmares, learning about his ancestors who survived the Trail of Tears and the Tulsa Race Massacre. And it is beautifully told, I like to think. And it also has some hefty back matter. So for further discussion and understanding for those coming at maybe these experiences for the first time. And just note that this is very age appropriate. It's a picture book, but it's very age appropriate for that age. There's nothing in there that's going to scare somebody. They're big topics, but they're appropriately handled.
Appropriately handled. And tell me more about the illustrator, E.B. Lewis.
E.B. Lewis is a fine artist, and I think he illustrates on the side. I really don't know, but he does these wonderful watercolor paintings. And they just kind of vibrant and come to life. And he's funny. I've not met him in person, but I have talked to him on the phone a couple of times. And I bought some of the original art from the book, and I can't wait to hang it in my house. But yeah, the paintings are gorgeous. And I think one review called that the way EB did the illustration made it easier for kids to engage with the art and the story in a way that fits them best, so they can engage with it fully or they can step back a little bit.
We're talking about Native books that were published this year in 2025. Actually, some of the titles maybe weren't published this year. Maybe they were from last year, but our guests liked them so much they still wanted to talk about them, and that's cool. But anyway, we're just celebrating Native books by Native authors today. And any listeners who would like to join this conversation, I'm talking to folks right now who enjoy reading bookworms, who like novels, who like memoirs, who like nonfiction, anything as long as it's Native. And if you have some favorite authors or some favorite titles that you really, really appreciated this year, give us a call. We'd really like to hear from you. The number is 1-800-996-2848. Once again, 1-800-996-2848. Give us a call. We've got the phone lines open. Producers are standing by waiting for you. So just pick up that phone and call 1-800-99-NATIVE. Let's now talk with Amber McCrary. She is a writer and poet. And Amber, let's talk more about verse. How active were our Indigenous poets this year?
Yeah, pretty active. I feel like the past 5 years have been such a great moment for Native poetry. I would have to say that my top pick of the year would have to be The Museum of Unnatural Histories by Annie Wenstrup. And Annie is a Dena'ina poet from Alaska. And this book, I know Annie personally, but I was very surprised by a lot of the poems I've never read and just how amazing this book was curated. And it's a debut poetry collection, and a lot of it talks about personal history in the space of an imagined museum. So it has different narrators within this book. So I can't say it in Dena'ina. So one of the narrators is a raven. Some of them are museum curators. Even one is even one of my favorite pieces is it's titled Tiny Architectural of Digest Interviews Polly Pocket at her home alongside the lazy river. So it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek interview of Polly Pocket and but within like kind of like a museum space.
Uh-huh.
It's a very it's not like it's not a book that like hands you everything where it's like this is what it's about and it's A plus B plus C equals this, but like it's very much like I love that a lot of the format is experimental and it thinks outside of what we would consider I guess like the regular format of what we think poetry is. So I think she is definitely a step ahead in terms of contemporary Indigenous poetics. She plays with space, she plays with language, she plays with humor, and I feel like it's very brave. It's even like, I would consider it almost like Indigenous futurism too, just because it's so forward thinking and outside of the box. And I mean, I understand why Annie's getting all the prizes right now for this book. She won the Whiting Award recently, which is a huge poetry award. I'm actually really surprised it didn't get a National Book Award nominee, because usually every year they have a Native author. I don't think they had a Native author this year. But I thought this cover was going to be on the nominee list. But yeah, I would have to say this is my favorite of the year when it comes to Native poetry.
The Museum of Unnatural Histories by Annie Winstrup. That is the book that Amber McCrary is speaking with us about right now. It's a poetry book, and one of the really, really cool elements, engaging elements of this book is that the author labels the pages like museum exhibit materials. So if you're interested in learning more about this book or any of the other books that we're talking about on the show today, check out our website, nativeamericacalling.com. We're going to have to take another short break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more with Amber as well as our other guests about more books from 2025, Native books. And I'd sure like to hear from some listeners right now. Tell me what books you have enjoyed reading this year. Native books by Native authors. Doesn't matter. Fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and memoir. We'd like to hear about any books that you enjoyed reading by Native authors. So what are you waiting for? Call us, 1-800-996-2848, or just tell us what you love about books. That'll work too. 1-800-99-NATIVE.
Support from Clarkson Potter, publisher of Turtle Island, Foods and Traditions of the Indigenous Peoples of North America by Native American chef Sean Sherman. With ancestral and modern recipes, this cookbook showcases diverse foodways of the continent's regions.
Need help identifying community priorities? Kaufman & Associates' approach to evaluation is rooted in Indigenous knowledge, honoring tribal history, and sovereignty. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
This is Native America Calling, and we are wrapping up a great year of Native books. Tell us about the Native authors you enjoyed reading this year, or are you excited for what Native authors are working on for 2026? Give us a call. Join this conversation, 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE, and you can find our panel's choices for their favorite books on our website, nativeamericacalling.com. One of our guests today, Amber McCrary, is a writer and poet. She joins us from Phoenix, Arizona. And Amber, you yourself published a book about poetry this year. It's titled Blue Corn Tongue, Poems in the Mouth of the Desert. Tell us about it.
Sure. So Blue Corn Tongue, when I usually just have a quick way to describe it, I usually call it my desert love poems. I would say a good portion of the book is about love poems from a Dene woman to an Okta man. Dene is what I am. I'm from northern Arizona, and I kind of tell this story from the story from the perspective of like body, but also plants like junipers up in northern Arizona, even things from like the land, like the Colorado Plateau area, the Painted Desert, which is up north, and then also kind of seeing this O'odham man as like my muse, and also going beyond the body, because O'odham people, they're from southern Arizona, so it's kind of like this love letter to like both lands, because O'odham folks are from like the Sonoran Desert, and I also write like towards this muse too that, you know, encompasses like a saguaro or different desert plants, desert animals, white O'odham corn, or, you know, and then of course, you know, kind of narrating this too from the perspective of blue corn, which is very important for Navajo people. We have it in a lot of our ceremonies and a lot of like things that we eat on a daily basis, and especially when it comes to food sovereignty, that's a big one that's coming back for a lot of natives within the Southwest.
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting book. I'm really fascinated, and I like the concept you have of two people from different tribes. And I think for so many of us, I myself, you know, my wife is from a different tribe, and that's something, you know, it just always creates interesting dynamics when two Native people from different communities, or even, you know, even different parts of like, you know, some big tribes, even different parts of the reservation and things like that, get together. So great job. This is really cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Brian Young, who is also a Dene writer, coming out with a book next year, Shards of Silence. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I actually, I got a advanced reader copy of Shards of Silence. I'm about halfway through, and it's a young adult novel about, it's I think it's a little bit of memoir, but it's mainly fiction. So it's about a Navajo teen, Derek Hosky, and he attends an elite prep school on the East Coast, and he's very ambitious, he's very smart, and he's looking towards this future of not necessarily getting off the res, but he's looking towards a future of doing well in school and like possibly going to Ivy League and doing good for his family and his community. And that always goes back to his connection with family, because his great-grandmother is one of the most important characters in this book, because she's kind of going through a health problem, so she's always on his mind. And then he has to do a paper for his history class, and he ends up doing his paper on federal boarding schools, because his great-grandmother, her only concept of boarding school is kind of like, you know, the boarding schools, the Native boarding schools that most Natives went to. So she thinks it's kind of like that, but Derek's actually like at a very, like one of the top boarding schools on the East Coast, where it's like, you know, a very expensive tuition, and top elite kids go to this school, and then they go on to the Ivy Leagues. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and you know, there's a long history of that with Native kids who get recruited to go, even, you know, back in the 1970s that was happening, going to like Choate and Exeter, these really, really high-level college prep schools. That's cool. That sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, and it's actually based on, you know, it's based off of Brian's real-life experiences of him going to Sagefield Academy, which is in Connecticut, and then he, you know, eventually went on to going to Yale, and I think he got his MFA from Columbia. So it's very similar. I see, like, you know, the parallels between memoir, but at the same time, it's still fiction. So I find it very interesting from the perspective of like a writer and how he is writing this kind of like a memoir, but it's still fiction.
Right.
Yeah.
The book is titled Shards of Silence by Brian Lee Young. We'll keep an eye out for it. Will be
that one
published in
comes
2026.
out May 2026. Yeah.
Okay, so spring. We got a few months, but we'll keep an eye out for sure. All right, we got a caller on the line. This is Deidre, who is joining us, listening to the show online. Deidre, hello. You're on the air. How you doing?
Hello, I listen to you all the time, and I've just been too shy to call.
Well, I'm glad you picked up the phone today.
I really have to call because of what you're talking about, all the Native American authors and the books. And I'm coming from Ecuador. It's not easy to find these books here. However, I'm actually reading books that I learned about from listening to your programs. And I'm reading two of them right now because I'm of Ojibwe ancestry. So, and I know my ancestors, they did go to boarding school. It's had consequences, of course. So I'm reading Holding Our World Together by Brenda Childs. And there's Ojibwe women in the survivors community. And I'm sure I heard about this book listening to your shows. And the other one I'm reading is Mary Anna Pember's Medicine River, A Story of Survival and the Legacy of Indian Boarding Schools. And it's so painful to read, you know. I think sometimes, but we need to feel this grief. We need to cry for what our ancestors went through, and to thank them for having survived, basically. But I just want to thank you because if it weren't for your show and the people you invite, I would just really have no idea what is going on and what books there are. And I've also got I picked up some books also for my children, for my kids. I have been reading, you know, some of the good books, mostly by Ojibwe writers for young people.
Uh-huh.
And I want to congratulate you because, ever since I first started listening to you on WOJB, I just never like to miss any of Native Voice One shows.
Oh,
and I think you do a great job. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Deidre, for calling in and sharing all those book titles. Yeah, WOJB up in Wisconsin, one of our partnering stations here for Native America Calling. So great to have that shout out as well. And Amber, I want to go back to you because there's another memoir we need to talk about that came out this year, Soft as Bones, and Canadian.
Yeah. Cheyenne Marie Sage wrote Soft as Bones, and it's a poetic memoir from the perspective of Cheyenne, and she talks about generational trauma within her life, mainly a big incident that kind of happened, she talks about at the beginning of the story or the book, where she finds out that trigger warning, that her father has been sexually abusing her older half sister, and it kind of shows like what happens to this family after this happens and how things kind of take shape in her life after that, and like how she experiences like relationships with romantic partners within her life, and how it takes a lot of work for her to heal through a lot of these traumas that she experienced when she was younger and experiences even to this day, and like what does she do as a Native woman to kind of move forward from a lot of this that happens. And I think one of the biggest parts that I found really interesting as a writer is towards the end of the memoir, she interviews her sister, where this this very traumatic incident happens to, and kind of they talk about it, and it's just very interesting how she interviews her and they talk about it. And, that I thought that was very powerful, especially in terms of being a writer and just, talking the truth out and moving forward as siblings. And I'm just really excited to see what else Cheyenne comes out with in the future.
Yeah, I am too. Amber, one more book I want to ask you about, then I want to go back to Allison for a few more additional thoughts. Beyond the Glittering World. This was an anthology. Tell us a little bit about those stories.
Yeah, Beyond the Glittering World. So that is a blend of poetry, fiction, and nonfiction from a lot of emerging up-and-coming writers and established writers. So that was edited by Darcy Little Badger, Stacy Dunette Sotzi, and Kinsell Drake. And it was curated by them, and it has a lot of really great poems, stories, nonfiction pieces. I would say my favorite piece out of that is you'll see her name a lot in the next few years, Danielle Shondine Emerson. Her poem, If My Love Were a Res Dog, that is my favorite poem in the whole book. Even though I have a couple poems in it, but this, Danielle is just amazing. I always think of this line in that poem where it's, if my love were a res dog, I would keep chasing you. And it's just a blend of everything brilliant in Native poetry. But yeah, it's a great book. They're touring it right now, so follow Tory House, and they have different writers all throughout the year that are touring the book.
If my love were a res dog, I need to remember that. I'll tell my wife that under the mistletoe.
That's going to mean a lot of wedding vows.
Yeah,
in the
it will.
future.
It will. You know it. Awesome. Thank you, Amber. Allison Waka, I want to go back to you. We've been talking about a lot of books, a lot of titles, a lot of authors. Anyone we've left out that we need to introduce into the conversation before we're out of time?
Oh my goodness, there's so many, but Marcy Rendon, I think, would be an absolute favorite of mine. I know we were kind of chatting about it for the list, but so Broken Fields, it's the Cash title that I think it's the third one in the series, Cash Black Bear. So just really love her novels. I feel like they're a lighter read, but still get you in the feels, especially in the beginning of them all. So there's just so many to choose from. I'm really, really just happy about the variety. There's the horror, there's the murder mystery, there's YA, there's poetry. Just really would just appreciate anyone checking them out, going to your library and requesting them, getting them in circulation, and it's just excited where things are going. We have the past, the teachings, we have the culture, we have contemporary experiences. I'm just so proud and happy of all the choices that people have now to read and engage in history and culture.
Cash Black Bear Mystery Series by Marcy R.
Marcy
Rendon.
Rendon.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She's here in Minnesota. A wonderful, wonderful woman. Great writer. And so she does a lot of plays too on MMIR, and it's a really great series if you're looking for that, easy murder mystery read. So.
All right. Well, with that, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up this conversation. We are out of time, but big thanks to our three guests, our Native literature experts who joined the show today: Allison Waka, Amber McCrary, and Stacy Wells. And remember, we have our book lists online, so check them out. NativeAmericaCalling.com. That's the website. Follow up. Authors' names, titles, great reads, native reads for 2025. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow, Christmas Day, when we revisit a show on maintaining your mental health during the busy holiday time of year. Hope you'll tune in. I'm Sean Spruce. Have a wonderful holiday season, spending time with friends and family. We'll talk again soon.
Support for journalism that raises the awareness of child well-being to citizens and to policymakers provided by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, building a brighter future for children, families, and communities. Information at aecf.org.
Support by the American Indian College Fund, providing millions of dollars of scholarships to Native students every year. Applications are accepted through May 31st at collegefund.org or by phone at 800-766-FUND.
Repatriation is the return of ancestors and stolen culture. The Association on American Indian Affairs is hosting the 11th annual Repatriation Conference, Feeding the Fire, Advancing the Movement, in February 2026. This fully virtual conference will offer small group interactive workshops, strategies, networking, and more to advance domestic and international repatriation. More at Indian-Affairs.org. The association supports this show.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.